ठीक है. So phenomenological failure criteria is a criteria which we write it in this format: fi sigma I to the power alpha plus fi j sigma I j to the power beta dot dot dot, where I and j vary from 1 to 6. A simplest way to do it is fi sigma I plus fi j sigma I sigma j is equal to 1. Now this will have 42 material constants if I open it up completely. I have f1 sigma 1, f2 sigma 2 dot dot dot, f6 sigma 6, and different combinations of sigma I sigma j I varying from 1 to 6. So I have 6 into 6 36. So 42 constants. So if I want to use this theory of failure in its pure format, then we have to somehow extract 42 material constants from the different experiments that we do. So the first thing is that we will assume that my material behavior is symmetric. Just like stiffness is symmetric, this should also be symmetric. So F12 is equal to F21, F13 is F31 dot dot dot. Okay. Now then we can say F16, F14, F15 are all 0 because shear stress is independent of sign. And similarly, since shear stress is independent of sign, we can also say F4, F5, F6 is 0. After that, we have this notation where I have 12 material constants. Now 12 material constants, but keep in mind that the lamina is usually thin and in a state of plane stress. If 1, 2 is the lamina plane, then we can further simplify this. We can remove the sigma 3 terms. And I think we can remove sigma 3 and sigma 5, sigma 6 also. We just need sigma 1, 2. We can remove sigma 4, sigma 6. So all the terms which have sigma 4, sigma 6, sigma 3 will come to be 0 because if I have plane stress condition, which my lamina has. Okay. So yes, what exactly was your question?
Sir, I have one more doubt that in when you said that shear stress is independent of sign, but in composites we saw that strain in compression is different from that of means expansion. In normal materials it is same, but in composite we had discussed one slide regarding
Ha,
that
ha,
they
ha.
are. So we will be applying all this theory for composites. So is it reasonable to take the sign as independent?
1 minute. Mm, Yeah, it is a simplification, as I said. Correct. You are right, but it's a simplification that we are making.
Okay, sir.
And the expectation is that since the other material constants we are taking, so somehow that will be incorporated into it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Sir, what exactly is the difference between F1 and F11, F2 and F22? Because they should be same, right?
No. According to our failure criteria, F1 into sigma 1 is multiplied, F11 into sigma 1, sigma j is multiplied, is equal to some dimensionless quantity 1. So F1 is 1 by stress. Fij is 1 by stress square. I mean, assuming alpha is 1, beta is 1. So if I look at this equation at the bottom, Fi sigma I is equal to some dimensionless number because it is equated in the right hand side with 1. Fij sigma I sigma j is again some dimensionless number. So Fi is 1 by stress, Fij is 1 by stress square,
Okay, sir.
which we derive in the next, in the next slide, I have described how this can be done. Uniaxial tension test, F, all other states of stress are 0, only sigma 1 is non-zero. So I have F1 sigma 1 plus F11 sigma 1 is equal to 1. For tension, for compression, two equations, two unknowns. If you solve, you will get something like this. So F1 is 1 by x plus 1 by x prime. F11 is minus 1 by x prime, where x and x prime are the two strengths in tension and compression respectively. Okay. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Any more questions?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, how did we arrive from the general equation to the simplified equation? That
We
is
made
from
some. So this is the general equation, right? Fi sigma I to the power alpha. Now, looking at different values of alpha, beta, and gamma, you can get the different equations. So the simplest way is to say alpha is 1, beta is 1, and I will only take the first two terms. Because then if I do that, then the number of tests that I have to do will be limited. Otherwise, I have to do more tests. So is your question, how did I reach from Fi sigma I plus Fij sigma I sigma j is equal to 1 to this format? Is this your question?
no, sir, no, sir. The initial, the one you explained.
This is, we are just saying that there are infinite number of failures of theory that are possible different depending on the value of alpha, beta, and gamma that you as the designer choose to put. The simplest way is to say that alpha is 1, beta is 1, and I will only look at two terms. Okay?
Okay, sir. Yes.
This is, I mean, user defined. You could do, if you have access to large number of test data, if you have multiple, if you know when your composite will fail for multiple types of loading, then you might as well use alpha, beta, gamma. Basically, these equations are nothing but curve fitting. You will collect large number of data for different values of, for different multi-axial state of stress, how your material is failing. And from that, you are trying to extract the value of Fi, Fij, etc., etc. So depending, the more the data you have, the more the variables you can curve fit. And generally, it is seen that Fi sigma I plus Fij sigma ij is reasonable. On the one hand, you don't have to do too many tests to curve fit. On the other hand, it is fairly accurate. By curve fit, I mean that, you know, this expression is derived, right? F1 is equal to 1 by x plus 1 by x prime. So somehow you need this data, x and x prime. X and x prime is the when a material is going to fail when applied, when the state of stress is pure tension or compression in the x direction. Similarly, F11 is minus 1 by x prime. So more the data, more different variations of these equations you can use, but Fi sigma I plus Fij sigma I sigma j is the most common trade-off that you are doing. Understood? Na? Trade-off means I could go for Fi sigma I plus Fij sigma I sigma j plus Fijk sigma I sigma j sigma k, but then I have to do more tests. Now the question is, if I want to do more tests, how much is the accuracy increase going to happen? Then is it worthwhile to do more tests? Okay, good. Any more questions? This, what was described in slides 12 till about 15 is what is known as parameter identification. F1, F11, F1, F22, etc., are all parameters. And using the test data, you have to extract the parameters. So these are known as parameter identification. Tests, we want to do simple uniaxial tests. Okay, F12, F13, F23 are also parameters, which we are, which using simple tests, we are not able to identify. So, and luckily they are very small, so we often neglect it. Okay, F12 is the contribution in the overall failure when sigma 1 and sigma 2 are applied together, the influence of sigma 1 on sigma 2 and vice versa. If you look at all other terms, there is no interaction between different states of stress. Where sigma 1 is there, only sigma 1 is there. So, but sigma 1, sigma 2 is together and they are related by a factor F12. And it is found out that this interdependence is not significant. That's why we assume it to be 0. Otherwise, if this was not 0, then we would have to do difficult biaxial, and biaxial tests are very difficult to do. Do you know what is a biaxial test?
Yes, sir. In that
Yes,
test
sir.
means
Yes, in that test,
stress is applied in perpendicular directions means
not
sigma 1
necessarily
and
per, not necessarily perpendicular, in two directions, and then using
oh,
basic constitutive equation you could do, but yeah, mostly we will do in two directions. Now the problem is now you have two different load cells, one load cell for loading in the x, let us say, and one load cell in loading in the y, and you have to synchronize both of them. So getting an equipment where you can pull in two directions is very difficult. Okay. And plane stress, we get this equation. This is what is known as the Psi-Hu failure criteria. So basically, Psi's contribution, the name of Psi you will hear in a lot of textbooks. Whenever we learn mechanics of composite, his name comes. So his basic contribution is that he was able to look at failure theories or whatever mechanics for isotropic materials, and he was able to extend it for orthotropic materials and by definition for composite materials. So a lot of his work is based on this philosophy, which was very, very popular in the 70s, 80s when he was very active. Now we know that these failure criteria are off by about sometimes 6 times. Sometimes this failure criteria might say that your body will fail if the stress value is 100, but it fails at 16 also sometimes. So we know that these theories are very, very inaccurate, but since these were the first ideas about how to model failure in composite materials, they are still very popular. 1 week from now, we will discuss what is known as the worldwide failure exercise. In the worldwide failure exercise, the different failure criteria by different researchers was compared, and some of the results will be very, very surprising to you. So, but still, since he has started everything, his name comes everywhere. Okay, good. Any more questions? So look, one my says Hill, and then we say Psi Hill, because Psi went from isotropic to orthotropic to composite materials. Psi Hill. Okay, you'll be surprised to know that Stephen Tsai is still an active researcher, and very recently he has started research on a completely new topic which nobody has working on. He's in his 80s, 90s, but still actively doing research. He's an emeritus professor at Stanford. Okay, good. Any more questions? Hashin failure criteria, is this clear? In terms of application, in terms of practical application, this is perhaps the most important failure criteria that we are going to discuss. We will discuss this in more detail about how it has been implemented in Abacus, but is the theory clear? What this failure criteria is trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then please try to solve this problem. A laminate is subjected to plane stress. Sigma 1 is minus 50, sigma 2 is 10, and sigma 1, 2 is 12 megapascal. You have to confirm whether or not the laminate is safe using the Hashin failure criteria. So let us recap our Hashin failure criteria. What does Hashin failure criteria say? Hashin failure criteria says that first of all, you have to identify for the matrix failure, is it tensile or compressive? Sigma 22 plus sigma 33. If it is greater than 0, we will use the formula for tensile failure. If sigma 22 plus sigma 33 less than 0, we will use the compressive. So let us look at our data. So sigma 22 is 10, sigma 33 is 0, plane stress. So it is matrix tension. Okay. And fiber failure mode is compressive because sigma 11 is negative. So I will use this formula, which is sigma to matrix tensile failure and compressive fiber failure. Okay, the data is given to you. Please try to solve. Let us try. So I will put matrix tensile failure. I choose the different values that are given. I find that the value is 0.82. So we can say that the matrix tensile failure does not occur. Okay, now let us try for compressive fiber failure. Similarly, if I put the value, I find that the fiber compressive failure does not occur because the value is less than 1. So we can say that my laminate is safe. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
In your term project, you are going to implement the Hashin failure criteria. It should be able to identify whether it is tensile or compressive failure. You will calculate the stress in a particular layer, and then there has to be an if loop which says whether the failure mode is tensile or compressive. Check for both fiber and the matrix, and then give us some value whether it is safe or not safe. Keep this in mind. This is very important. Tensile failure, compressive failure. This is one of the reasons why this Hashin failure criteria is very popular. Okay, so is this type of problem clear?
Yes, sir.
Let's go to the next type of problem. Okay, a laminate is subjected to some state of stress, sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 1, 2 is given. Now you have to confirm whether or not the laminate is safe using the tensor failure criteria, and the different values are given. Fiber tension compression, transverse tension compression, and the two shear strengths are given to you. The state of stress is given. We want to use the tensor failure criteria and find out whether or not this is safe. How are you going to do it? So first of all, I will recall that the state of stress is plane stress. And then I will recall that these are the formulas for calculating the different parameters. Okay, I have the equation. Equation depends on some parameters. So the step 1 is to calculate the different parameters. Based on the values of the strength, we will calculate F1, F2, F11, F22, and F66. Okay. And after that, put it in this equation and then find out whether the right hand side is less, left hand side is greater. Sometimes the value of the parameters is directly known. Sometimes you have to calculate it like I have done it in this slide. Have you noted the data, or should I go back to the previous slide? Please copy the values of the stress and tell me whether is my laminate safe or not safe. Anybody has the answer? So as I said, step one, we will calculate the parameters based on the simple formulas. And then we will put it in the formula and we will get the value 1.038, which means that the laminate is going to fail. Now the question also comes that since we have learned the general method, so I'm going back to my previous slide where I said that this is the phenomenological criteria, and for this tensorial notation which is at the bottom, I have shown you how to derive. Now, it is also quite possible that the parameter identification has also to be done by you. I think in the last year end semester or 2 years ago, there was a question where we said that assume a general failure criteria which is Fi sigma I plus Hi sigma I square is equal to 1, and then find out whether or not your laminate is safe. So in that question, using the same thought process that we have used here on the material constant derivations, you again so you have to derive the expressions for the parameters, use those expressions, and then find out whether or not the laminate is safe. Is the problem statement clear? How the problem that I have just described?
No, sir. Could you please explain?
So I'm saying that it is also possible that the failure criteria is given to you, but it is not the same as the one which we have discussed in class. Okay? In the sense that it could be, just 1 minute, let me look for the question paper, it will be clearer. So I am sharing this question paper of 2019. Okay, it was 2019. Read question number 1A. Can you try to solve? Take the first equation, expand it. What are you going to get? Gi sigma 1 plus G2 sigma 2 plus dot 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 G6 sigma 6 plus F1 sigma 1 square plus F2 sigma 2 square dot 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 F6 sigma 6 square. What is the second equation we have discussed in the class just now and also in the video? What is the difference between the first and the second failure criteria? The terms F12 sigma 1 sigma 2, this combination is not there in the first equation, correct? Because it's only F1. But we are saying biaxial strength parameters are 0. So that way, that if the biaxial strength, then you will see that if you open both of them, they will come out to be the same. Please try. Copy this to our presentation. The first equation will be what? Plus F1 sigma 1 square plus F2 sigma 2 square dot, 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 dot. How many parameters are there in the first equation?
So 12.
12. And in this equation, I will have again, the first part is the same, G1 sigma 1, plus I will have 36 F11 sigma 1 plus dot 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 F1 6 sigma 1 sigma 6 and into 6. But we have found out that most of the terms are 0. Yes, like F16 was 0 because shear stress is negative. Because this normal stress can vary plus minus, we are saying shear stress cannot vary based on that logic, etc. Ultimately, what is left? Ultimately, we have this equation that is left. Correct? So
Yes, sir.
copy this. Let's bring it here. And okay. Now, if you look at the equation that I have written for the first one, G1 sigma 1 plus G2 sigma 2 dot dot dot, which is equivalent to this. And then I have F1 sigma 1 square, F2 sigma 2 square dot dot dot, which is basically sigma 1 term. So G1 is equal to F11, G2 is equal to F22. And we are saying the biaxial strength parameters are tending to 0. So this gets cut out. So now am I left with the same equation? Does the first equation and the equation that we have just copied, do they become the same?
Yes, sir.
So they are equivalent. But it could have been different also, right? I mean, we could also say my equation is Gi sigma I minus Fi sigma I square greater than 1. In that case, you would have to derive the parameters all over again. So as a part of this course, I have taught you how to derive the parameters for one example, but the expectation is that any tensorial failure criteria is given to you, you should know how to derive the material parameters. Okay? Okay, not okay.
Excuse me,
Sir,
sir.
Yes.
So we have made F6 equal to 0 because it was associated with a shear stress, but F66 is not 0. Is it because it consists of a square term sigma 6 square?
Right. Yes, yes. That is right.
Okay, understood.
Okay, can I go to the next topic?
sir.
Yes.
So in these two equations, the only difference that will come with that is coming is F1 sigma 1 square, and the other equation it is coming F11 sigma 1 square. So again, this is notation difference.
That is only
So I
notation
mean,
difference, right? That is just nomenclature difference.
okay, sir. So in this case, F1 will be equals to F11.
Correct, yes. That's why it is equivalent.
Okay.
But one thing I think important perspective to have, we will discuss that more also in the few weeks, that theories of failure for composite materials is still a work in progress. Unlike isotropic materials where everything is well established, we know what works, what does not work. For composite materials, we are still working on failure criteria. We are still trying to improve it. It is imprecise science. Still, the errors can be hundreds of percentage points, etc. We'll discuss this, but keep in mind that this is all approximation. We are now in the domain of research and development. These are the things where people are researching. There is no clear-cut answer. Nobody knows which failure criteria is best or which failure criteria will work for a type of composite material. It is just that different people have different choices depending on the material, depending on match with experimental. They will just pick up one. Like in this course, how many failure criteria have we learned? We learned Sai Hu, Sai Hill, Hoffman, Hashen, Christensen. But we don't know. Like for isotropic materials, we know if it is ductile, I will use von Mises maximum shear. If it is brittle, I will use maximum principle. For composite materials, this distinction is not so clear. We don't even know that any one of the five is good for a certain type of composite material. That also we might see that it is not necessarily true, because this is work in progress. So you make some compromises, you make some approximations, you get on with life, but a precise, accurate, correct answer for all the cases, that is not yet known. Okay, that's why this is a 5th year elective course and not a part of your undergrad studies. This is not well established enough. Fine, can I go to my next point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let us look at a theory of one simple way of dealing with cases where you know that your composite material is subjected to uniaxial stress only. No multiaxiality, it is uniaxial, but it can be in any direction. I mean, it need not be in the fiber or transverse to fiber direction, it could be in any other direction. So this criteria is very simple criteria known as the maximum stress criteria, where the idea is that first of all, you will go to the lab, you will take unidirectional lamina and perform the 6 different tests. Tension in fiber, compression in fiber, tension transverse, compression transverse, and the different shears that you might have. 1, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay. The terminology used here is slightly different from the one used in the video and the presentation. You have written xt, xc, there it was xx prime, but they mean the same thing. So you do these tests. According to this failure criteria, failure happens in a coupon when the stress components exceeds a certain limit, irrespective of the magnitude of the stress other component. Okay, this comes out to be very accurate if your composite material is subjected to uniaxial state of stress. And that uniaxial state of stress could be in any off-axis direction also. So how are we going to, if this data is given to us, that is strength of the composite material subjected to uniaxial load in different directions with respect to the fiber direction, how do we calculate the strength if the uniaxial load is applied in an off-axis direction? That is the question that we are trying to solve using this very simple analysis. So what we'll do, imagine now that this data is given to you. You know, all these tests were done. So xt, xc, yt, yc, pqrs, everything is given. Xt is basically the x in the slides that we have used so far. Xc is x prime. I have just taken this figure from the book by Herakovich, who uses a slightly different nomenclature, but they mean the same thing. Now the problem is that data is given to us, but my coupon is subjected to uniaxial stress at an angle theta with respect to the fiber direction, that is 1. Okay, so how do we do it? We will do what is known as stress in an oblique plane, which you have learned, I think, in your first week. Whenever you learn mechanics of solids, you have learned that if you want to calculate stress in an oblique plane, sigma 1 will be sigma x cos square theta, sigma 2 will be sigma x sin square theta, and tau 1 2 is minus sigma x sin theta cos theta. Everybody knows how these expressions are derived, I am assuming. Yes, this is very, very basic mechanics of solids. Do you know how this is, how we are arriving here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now that we have the value of sigma 1, sigma 2, tau 1, 2 for any value of theta, I will put it back in the failure criteria that we have used in, that I have described in my last slide. So my inequalities are going to come like this, that sigma x by cos square theta should lie between sigma x, the applied load should lie between sigma xc by cos square theta and sigma t by cos square theta. Similarly, so if these three inequalities are satisfied, then I can say that my material is safe. Okay. And this is how your plots are going to look like. Let's say the state of stress was purely tension. Then this line represents the first inequality, which is this one, sigma x, this equation. This second line represents the second equation. And this third line is my third equation. So I think it is better to do it. So basically this is this equation. This is this equation. And this is this equation. We can plot it like this. Now, at any value of theta, if I have two or more inequalities presented by these three equations, I have to take lower of the three limits. It means that if my second equation goes like this, so after this point of intersection here, this first equation is giving me higher value of strength, the second equation is giving me lower value of strength, so I have to take this lower value. Similarly, at 60 degree, The shear mode of failure is giving me this value of strength, and transverse is giving me this value of stress. So I should take this one. This is a very simple failure criteria, but it works properly if you have only uniaxial state of stress, even if it is at an off-axis coupon, and it is also able to tell you, is your fiber going to fail, is your matrix going to fail, or is it going to fail due to shear? So you can, using simple idea like this, you can actually calculate, you can draw the failure as a function of angle theta where the load is applied. What we are going to do is we are going to, so it's good. So from 0 to about 5 degree, it is this line. Then from 5 degrees all the way down, 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 down. It is this, and then I have to go take this line because it is lower. So you are, if you plot the strength of a uniaxial of a coupon subjected to loading in the off-axis direction, x-axis is theta, y-axis is stress, you are going to get a discontinuous curve. This discontinuity is coming because there are 3 inequalities that you have to look at. Okay. Now using this plot, and if you have representative values, you can say that fiber failure will only occur if your loading is within 3 to 5 degrees of the fiber direction. And at about 28, 32 degrees, depending on the material properties, you will have shear. After 28 degrees off axis loading, it is almost always going to be simple analysis, but very elegant, and also gives you lots of physics insights. Is this clear?
Sir, these inequalities, we represent this by a region. Suppose sigma x should belong between this region xc by cos square theta and xt by cos square theta. But here it is represented by just a line.
Because this is all, we are assuming that it is in tension. Everything is tension. So basically, we just took this. We assume that the state of stress is tension. If the state of stress was compression, then a similar curve, you'll have 2 curves like this. Even though this is an inequality, but whether sigma x is tensile or compressive, you know beforehand. Yes or no?
Yes.
A similar analysis you can also do if you don't believe the maximum stress criteria, but you believe the maximum strain criteria. Once again, the logic remains exactly the same. You only have to be careful about this expression. Instead of stress, this will have to be derived in terms of strain and the elastic constants, but it can be done. In fact, I would recommend that you try to do it. If you're unable to do it, we will discuss in the class. That what will be the expressions if we believe the maximum strain criteria, not the maximum stress criteria. Okay, this is your homework. Is the maximum stress criteria clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let us look at one more type of problem, which is one more theoretical aspect. I think we have 10 minutes, so we'll just start this. Okay, this is known as the margin of safety. Margin of safety is a concept which is very similar to factor of safety in terms of what we are trying to achieve, but the definition is different. And margin of safety is popular in the aerospace industry, not so much in the other industries. So in this margin of safety, what we do is we say that let's say I have a failure criteria which says that failure occurs when this condition is satisfied. This is some general representation of my phenomenological failure criteria. So a tolerable stress state is if this is less than equal to 1. Then we introduce a factor R such that wherever there is a sigma term, I will put R sigma I. So Fi sigma I to the power alpha becomes Fi sigma I to the power alpha into R to the power alpha. Fij sigma ij to the power beta into R to the power 2 beta. Beta is coming because beta is here. 2 is coming because I have sigma I sigma j. Similarly into R to the power 3 gamma. So if all the values of sigma is known, all the material parameters are known, then we are left with a polynomial equation in terms of R. This value of R is known as the margin of safety. If it was factor of safety, we would just calculate this term. You would 1 by the left hand side would become your factor of safety. But we are not using factor of safety. A new concept is margin of safety. Here the idea is that every stress term, irrespective of whether it is normal, tensile, shear, anything, you will multiply that with an R. Hopefully you will get a polynomial equation in terms of R. If everything else is known, get the value of R, that is your margin of safety. Clear? Let's look at a practical demonstration, okay? So let's say that I have the tensor failure criteria, which is Fij sigma I max plus Fij sigma I max sigma j max equal to 1. I will say sigma I is equal to R sigma I. Then I have equation which looks like this: Fij sigma ij R square plus Fi sigma I R minus 1 is equal to 0. Solve this quadratic equation and you will get the value of margin of safety. So basically what we are doing is that a certain polynomial criteria gives me this solid ellipsoid. As I increase the margin of safety, I am decreasing the ellipsoid, but I am not keeping the center of the different ellipsoids same. They will shift slightly based on the value of margin of safety. And as the margin of safety increases from 1 to 1.5 to 2, the size of my failure envelope is decreasing. So let's look at this problem, okay? A carbon epoxy laminate is loaded and you have this stresses which are given, okay, in this format. Calculate the margin of safety and also predict which lamina is likely to fail. Use Saihu criteria. And these are the strength parameters. Fine. So the first thing we are going to do is I am going to read the ply orientation and I am going to read the value of sigma x, sigma y, sigma xy. So from this data, I have calculated sigma x, sigma y, sigma xy. Sigma x, sigma y, sigma xy is the global coordinate axis system. So this data is given: ply orientation, sigma x, sigma y, sigma xy. I have to convert all of them into the local coordinate axis system so that for each lamina, the state of stress is with respect to the fiber coordinate axis system. For 0 degree, it is remaining the same. For 45 degrees, I have done stress transformation. 90 degree, minus 201 and 800 are swapped. The shear remains the same, and so on and so forth. Okay. So all the calculations have to be done in terms of sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 1, 2. Then I have this equation: Fij sigma ij R square plus Fi sigma I R minus 1 is equal to 0. I will calculate the different parameters F11, F22, F1, F2 dot 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 based on the material properties that are given to me. I already know the expressions. And then put the value of sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 1, 2 and F12 in the equation, solve for R. So this R intact that you are getting is the margin of safety for the different layers. Wherever the R safety is the lowest, that lamina is likely to fail. So we can say that the minus 45 degree laminas are most likely to fail. Okay, good. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
if the load is, if all the stress components are increased by a factor of 1.7, then the 45 minus 45 degree lamina would actually fail. This is how we will calculate the margin of safety. Important things to keep in mind, that all the failure criteria that you have studied, Hashin failure criteria or Sai-Hu criteria, all of them are applicable only if the stress components are in the fiber coordinate axis system. If you have calculated stresses for some other coordinate axis system, you have to do a stress transformation. And from the stress transformation, we have to go to my local coordinate axis system and then apply the failure criteria. This is very critical. And depending on the failure criteria, you will either solve mostly a quadratic equation in terms of R to get the value of the margin of safety. So these calculations are tedious to do using a piece of paper, but using an Excel based tool or using simple coding, these calculations are actually very easy to execute to calculate the margin of safety for every layer. Any questions about my margin of safety? One more important point is we are using the term R intact. Can you tell me why am I using this word intact? This is because we are assuming that none of the plies have failed. Okay. Let's say I increase the load by 1.7, then my minus 45 degree ply fails. That does not mean that my lamina or laminate fails. It just means that the minus 45 degree lamina will refuse to take any load. Then the stress will be redistributed, and then I could again do this calculation, and then I could calculate progressive damage. So we are looking only at onset of damage. So intact means my lamina is intact. None of my laminate is intact, none of my lamina have failed. So in our next few classes, we will learn how to do progressive damage, and then we'll know that it is R intact, and then this value of R progressively changes after onset of damage. That's hence the word intact. Okay. Any questions? If not, then I am winding this lecture up. We will continue our very interesting discussion on the damage modeling of composite materials in the next few weeks. Tuesday, we will have our exam. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then have a good weekend. See you on Tuesday. I will share the two presentations immediately after this class. Okay, then we may wind up this class. See you on Monday. Bye.